Hi, welcome to PunchlineGloucester.com. Punchline talks the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I'm a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happening in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. Before I start, I just want to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. And we really, really couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's meet the panel today. We've got Amanda Toner. She's a director and inspirational officer of Incito Group Holdings Ltd. Started in 2016 with Westgate Street. Her and her husband, Paul Toner, they run the franchisees and we'll have 8 McDonald's franchisees across Gloucestershire, employing around 1,000 staff and a turnover of 45 million. It's a fast food, fast business. So we'll find out the latest news, what's happening in there, and also the old TGI Fridays in Cheltenham. Hopefully, Amanda will give us a lowdown on that as well. Okay, we have Sarah Mansfield. She's a joint MD and CEO of Gloucester Food Dock. I absolutely love the Gloucester Food Dock as well. The new 3.5 million food and hospitality hot house has been open to the public for over 12 months. They've got 13 of their 15 businesses now trading. So we'll find out all about that and what's actually happening next as well. So looking forward to that. We have Chris Nelson. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner for Gloucestershire Constabulary. He's the county's 4th largest employer with over 2,400 employees, approximate budget of £168 million. The police has never been under so much financial strain, as we all know. The force needs to find an extra £13.3 million by the end of financial year of March 2026. So we'll find out from Chris how that's going and the strains the police are under at the moment. And finally, never last not least, we've got Kevin Hamblin. He's the CEO and principal of South Gloucestershire Stroud College. They have 3 sites and over 1,000 staff, a turnover of approximately £50 million. Kevin will be stepping down from his role at the end of March, so we'll find out from him what the future of the college looks like, but also especially Berkeley and Albury, which I'm very excited about that site, so we'll find out all about that as well. Anyway, okay, before we move, let's find out what's happening or what is making the national newspapers. Okay, we've got the Daily Express. End the war, but don't let Putin win the peace, says the Express. The Metro, quick fix is a dirty deal. The Eye, 1949 deal to protect Europe from war is history. Trump's message to the shocked world leaders. The Times, US may provide air cover to protect Ukraine. The Mirror, King's trip to charm Trump. The Daily Telegraph, 2% defence won't touch the size. But the story that's really caught my eye here is that Trump puts UK on £24 billion VAT tariff alert. That's not great news for businesses here in Gloucestershire. The Daily Mail, Reeves under pressure to come clean on expenses. And the Daily Star, Chancellor's CV is full. Well, I won't say any more than that, really. Full of holes. Okay, right. She's got a lot of trouble, a lot of pressure at the moment. When we run our own business. Amanda, let's start with you today, please. What have you picked out from the papers?
So I picked out a paper news from the Telegraph actually today. It's about the working from home college courses for a life of working from home, and it's an article about how a technical college has agreed that young people can work from home for sort of 20% of their course, and the narrative in the paper really discusses what that means to the people. And you've got business leaders saying, whatever you're saying, this is the life to prepare them with in a technical situation. This isn't the same as, for want of a better expression, boots on the ground. And I find it quite interesting because obviously in our industry, you see a lot of e-learnings and things that have to be completed, and digital is supposed to speed things up. But that removal of presence and place and real experience, hands-on learning, I think is in jeopardy. So I find it quite interesting. A technical college, has agreed to allow people to do that in order to prepare them. But on the same tack, it is something that's happening in the world. And to your point, I think it's something that we might all have to get used to a bit more. So 2 sides to it. Quite interesting that the college has gone out and done that. Let's see where it goes. That was my interesting point.
So we have the chief, not being from the CEO of a college. Just very quickly, Kevin, what's your view on that?
I think it's a little bit of a nothing story, really, because students would normally go to college 3 days a week anyway. So 40% of the week is learning from home and one thing or another. But I think it is correct that the world of work is changing, and the use in digital and technology, I think, is going to become more and more prevalent. So it's interesting, but I don't think it'll be something that the government will want us to fund.
Okay. Sorry, Amanda. Another story, or do you
I
want
know,
to come
no,
back?
you continue with that one. I've got one more, but I'll let someone else take it.
Okay, Sarah, let's go to you then, please. What have you picked out for the papers?
So it's a pretty grim world out there at the moment, isn't it? So I was looking at Valentine and Day of Love and all the stories around that. And interestingly, all the connections with food that go on. So there've been a couple of stories linking Valentine's with food in the press today. One is the Times, in the Times, and apparently we are all now turning to fishy products to show our love rather than the traditional sweets and chocolates that we may have done. I'm not sure how true that is, but there's a fairly large article on the influence of TikTok and chefs and influencers on what we buy and the rise in the products of anchovies and salmon and caviar and whatever else, which is interesting. There was a fun one around food in the Eye, which is a lovely story about someone proposing in Morrison's here with a special especially baked goods by Morrison's, which was lovely of them to sort of present for him to present to his fiancée. So again, food bringing people together. And then there's this question of, well, there's a piece in the Guardian as ever exploring whether Valentine's is a fun or a bad thing, but actually concluding that it's in these times it is lovely to celebrate love and just enjoy the day. I happen to live in Wiltshire, I have to say, put my hand up, but and there's a fun bit about the village in Wiltshire called Lover, which was also in the Eye, and they've got a quite a nice scam of everyone sends them some money, and then they post Valentine's cards out around the world with the post stamp from the village of Lover, which I thought was fun. But interesting, I think that the sort of the relevant thing for us as businesses, it is a day of trading. It is a day when, especially those in the food industry and the restaurant cafe industry, they have an opportunity to sell another story, to draw people into business. And it's been a pretty grim January. People haven't been out and about, haven't been enjoying themselves. So it is nice to have these days which provide a little bit of a lift to the businesses at these times, and hopefully everyone will go out and have fun this evening.
Okay, that's lovely. That is, because that brings me back over to you, man. Because obviously, McDonald's, do you see a big lift up in trade with Valentine's Day?
We've got a special sort of promotion out at the minute. It's just hit for this weekend, this Stormzy meal. So there's an awful lot of, they're doing energy around it. It's not, we don't do a touting, especially for Valentine's, but you will see an uplift in people coming in together, getting food together. Some years yes, some years no. It very much depends. But at the minute, this Stormzy is this new meal, which is going to hit with the younger crowd, which is where they're looking at, may have an impact. So I'm working tonight. So the next time I come on the show, Mark, I'll be able to give you a real-time explanation of the impact. Maybe someone will go down, Sarah, like on one knee with a Big Mac and write, "Will you marry me?" in the restaurant. We can see if that'll happen. That would be good.
We can stun that up, Amanda. Thanks so much for that, Chris. Let's bring you in. Chris, welcome to the show again.
Yeah, hi, Mark. A couple of stories. One on the defence spending, and some people saying that 2.5% of GDP is not going to be enough for the armed forces to protect the country. And it was interesting because when I look at police spending, we spend about 1% of GDP on internal security across Britain. And I think, I as an ex-military, ex-army individual, I support anybody asking for more investment into the armed forces. But in the job that I'm doing now, you need to have internal security as well as external security, and 1% is simply not enough. My other story was the Lawrence of Arabia story, and a bunch of special forces guys repeating the journey that Lawrence of Arabia did in the First World War. He's one of my sort of military heroes, and it was a fantastic journey across a desolate desert to Aqaba, which helped pull the Arab nations together to fight the Turks in the Middle East. And if you've seen that great film of Lawrence of Arabia, that's a big scene in that film. So I think it's a nice idea that those guys are doing, and they're raising money for special forces charities.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Chris. Go
I
on,
was
Amanda.
sorry, I was just going to say that was one of my stories, so I didn't jump in, but I just wanted to say, Chris, what I did find quite amusing was in the article they said that when they got to Jordan, they gave them some police camels, which are apparently faster. And I had this mental image of, oh, have they got lights on? What are they doing? What are they trying to get them through? I thought that was quite interesting that all of a sudden they've got like speed camels, obviously, that are trekking through. So
yeah, I must get one of these go faster camels.
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, faster than some of these electric cars you've got, maybe, Chris. Anyway, right, moving swiftly on. Kevin, what have you picked out for the papers, please?
I'll stick in to my own lane in education. It's National Apprenticeship Week, and an article in the Times just emphasising the fact that the report is saying that those that choose a apprenticeship route rather than perhaps the traditional undergraduate role and then go into business are likely to be better ready for work, as we all know, but also earn more money for both the country and for themselves. So I thought it's quite an interesting one, just undermine the benefit of choosing perhaps a graduate apprenticeship after A levels or after a vocational course at college at 16 to 19. And it also emphasises the rise of AI and the use of AI in the work skills and how that's going to be significantly affecting the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years, actually. And then also in an article in the Sun about a poll commissioned of 1,000 parents, and the parents 57% feel out of touch in the rise of technology, yet their children are very much into technology and see all the career opportunities that could arise from that. And parents are trying to persuade their kids to do more traditional routes, and the youngsters really want to go into digital. Okay, somewhat to be influencers and that sort of thing, but certainly 80% of the youngsters have gained hard skills through technology, including coding and problem solving and digital literacy. And when the country has a massive digital skills gap, I think the next generation that's coming through won't necessarily have that as a hindrance. So it does emphasise for me this tussle between what the youngster wants and what the country needs.
Yeah,
and how colleges have to react to the demand coming from individuals, but also recognise that employers want a particular skill set too. So I thought those two were quite relevant for today.
I remember them. I remember years ago them sort of training 40,000 hairdressers, and but we needed 40,000 brickies. It was a completely different thing, So it must be very difficult to work that out. What's where, especially with new technology changing all the time. Thanks ever so much for that, Kevin. Okay, let's go back over to you, Sarah. As you know, I'm a big fan of the Food Dock. I've followed you all this time over the years with the build, and I've been down there, and I've eaten down there, drank down there. And I was down there very recently. So what's happening at the moment? How is trade? Because it's tough out there in the hospitality sector, isn't it?
Well, it is actually. It is a tough business to be in at the moment for all sorts of reasons, as we know. And I think you covered that quite a lot in a punchline a couple of weeks ago. And it's not been, the weather doesn't help. It's not been great. People have come out of in a difficult economic climate out of Christmas as well. So it's not an easy world, but it is a world that lifts the spirit for people when they have the opportunity. As you say, we've been open just over 12 months now, and so and you've kindly been following as these businesses have been opening up, and as you know, they are small independent businesses that we've got a really nice mix of cuisines that's there, and so it's been fun seeing how those businesses settle down and how the different foods are received. The Daikoku was our latest opening, which is the ramen, fantastic ramen, and it's doing so well. It's been so well received. It's a lovely little cozy, almost, it almost feels like you're in East Asia, and the food is spectacular. So that's doing particularly well. It never ceases to amaze me how well our local producer, Holy Gelato, do, even through winter. Where people are still turning up in their milk and their gelato, whereas those businesses like Bellamere, the pizza, and Hetty's brunch, they've really settled into trade, and they've got a really sort of steady trading base going on, and a really sort of loyal customer base that come back. So it's really nice to sort of see all these patterns start to emerge. And we've actually got, just on the numbers, we will have 13. So we've very shortly this month, we've announced it, but they'll be opening this month will be Kin, which will be a small Thai business. So that's another type of cuisine. And then in early to mid-April, Roots and Seeds will take that lovely big unit on the quayside. And they've come from Cirencester. They're at the entrance to Cirencester Park, and they're very much a sort of field to fork restaurant. They'll be opening for breakfast, lunch, and then supper over Fridays and Saturdays. And they concentrate on dishes of the season, the provenance of the food, and so on. So they'll be great fun to have as well.
Yeah, good players. Not being funny, they've done very, very well. And Kim, they're a company from Hereford, aren't they? Got them over.
They're sort of they're South Wales and Hereford, so they've been in Cardiff and Newport, but they've also come into Hereford as well. So they've got a sort of that sort of slightly west of here origin.
Okay, and just very quickly, the Hot Kettle, how's that doing?
No, very well. Hot Kettle, so they have lots of fun events in Hot Kettle. They get involved in the folk trail and the quiz nights and so on, and the rugby. They show the rugby, and those go down really well. And as you know, they have a rolling street kitchen going in, and they have a Roly Poly, who are a well-known sort of Gloucester business at the moment. They're in there as well. So they have, as you know, it's a great location, great space, and with these events and with these activities, they really bring an audience.
Yeah, great beer as well. My mates really liked it, from Sweden. Okay, thanks ever so much for that. Amanda, let's go over to you. Paul, let's start with McDonald's, because it's such a dynamic business, yours, and you cover the whole county now. But I could touch on this TGI's story that we've been running over the last week. Just got planning permission, and I went down there the other day, and it's been gutted. They were my photographs, by the way, that we ran on Punchline. I climbed over the wall and took loads of shots, but the builder's not seeing me. Anyway, so is that you, Amanda? Are you going to go into TGI's in Cheltenham? Or
well, I don't know. So I know as much as you at the moment. The planners there was at a point at which the planners were, we knew had the application, and everybody knew that. But it looks like now it is going to go ahead. From our perspective, there's going to be another McDonald's opening. I think they talk later on in the summer at some point. We haven't had any information yet. We could get it, and we may do, but there's we've got 8 restaurants, we've got 1,000 people. We are focusing on running a profitable business, and McDonald's are very good at bringing in lots of new franchisees, younger blood, bringing the system. So it could be us, and I'm sure we would find out, but you don't get that much notice. But it may be another franchise. But I mean, from our perspective, it's good news for the brand. It's another 120 odd, or 110, or whatever it's going to be. I reckon probably about 120 jobs. With so that's good for them, good for the customer. It's nice to think a site like TGI Fridays, which has been so iconic for so long, with all that parking space, can be utilised. So whatever happens, it'll be quite exciting. And I think Cheltenham's been needing on that side of town something for a long time. So it's quite an interesting proposal.
Shut it out, because it's always sad to see an empty building all boarded up there in the main drag into Cheltenham. So no matter what it is, it's, to my mind, it's better to be full and given jobs than lying empty and all the rest of it. So let's talk very quickly about the business itself. I mean, what is selling well at this particular moment? We touched on Valentine's Day, we touched on Stormzy. Obviously, these new products that McDonald's bring out, they're very good at it.
The point is, communities are strapped. I mean, as you were saying, Sarah, people are strapped for cash and it's difficult. And we do quite a lot of trying to make a place you want to come to it, and it's got to be easy. And we're just working on providing a good service. We've noticed that people, if you've got cash to spend, it's probably slightly more in the evenings. Our trade is slightly more going towards that. But at the end of the day, I mean, as Sarah said, January's been a difficult month. It's hard for people to go out. The weather doesn't help. Businesses are struggling to, even though you're a huge brand like McDonald's, everyone's fighting for the kind of a piece of the pie. And I guess we just keep on doing what we're doing and trying to help it. They're doing a few different initiatives. So we've got a reading corner being set up, I think, at the beginning of March when the weather gets a bit nicer. We've got some characters coming in. We're doing more things with families. We're trying to recognise that, it's difficult if you want something more just money. So trying to put some other things onto some character visits and things like that. There's face painting and just a bit more activities and stuff like that. But probably like everyone, we're just keeping on doing what we're doing and trying to make it a good experience and keeping smiling, but it's not easy at the minute, and everyone's wanting, you've got your staff needing the hours, you've got the customers needing those sales. So it's not the easiest.
No, we've got showing, especially that many staff as well. The government changes in national insurance contributions.
Well, exactly.
Very quickly, the drive-through and the walk-through and the delivery side of things. I know you and I have touched on it in the past, but how much is that home delivery part of your business now?
Each restaurant is slightly different, and the McDonald's model is, you are skewed towards it being drive-through, but obviously delivery plays a part in that. So delivery in some restaurants can be 10%, but in others it can be 20 or 30%. So it depends on the different peaks and times of the day. So it's part of what's happened. We had COVID, and then all of a sudden people realised that they could do this, and it's changed the whole buying demographic. I'm not sure. I wonder if more. It will, like lots of things, it's going to hit a peak, and then you'll see people wanting to go out and have a bit more of an experience. And like the whole working from home thing, people did it for 5 days, and now it's becoming more hybrid and it's changing. I wonder if people are going to start wanting that human contact a little bit more, and that may drop off. I don't know. We see it on a day, and of course when the weather changes, when it's like this as well, delivery goes up because everyone's more. You don't want to go out, you can stay at home, there's another option kind of thing. So you can mark the trends, but we shall see. It's something that we monitor quite closely, but it brings with it its own set of other issues because you're working with another party, which obviously isn't your own staff, so that can cause us issues.
Yeah, and what is lovely about McDonald's, a bit like Stagecoach, is that you deal with customers from right across the age spectrum. From
right across the age spectrum, right across the different demographic spectrum, right across where people are going to spend their money. A huge disparate group of people. So from old age pensioners to families with young children. So you are trying to be all things to all people to a degree. So it interests me. You see very different. It's quite interesting going to the restaurants at different times because that's where you see the demographic happening. And we do a lot of training with staff in terms of. An older person will want to talk to someone for a longer period of time. This is what you do with families. So that's quite a big part of training and stuff for us.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that. And talking about someone else who obviously deals with right spectrum of all walks of life, that's you, Chris. Obviously, as chief of police and crime. I mean, goodness gracious, I wouldn't want your job at this particular moment. The police is in, your financial side, £168 million. Finances being squeezed. We just talked about it there. It's tough out there. You got a shortfall of £12.3 million. recently the police asked for redundancies, wasn't it? Backroom staff. How's that looking for you now, Chris?
Well, it's tough for everyone, I guess, at the moment, no matter what area you're in, particularly in public services. Policing, there's 43 forces across the country, and we all have problems. And basically, the government's using an out-of-date funding formula to dish out cash to police forces. And that formula tends to benefit urban areas, high crime areas, whereas rural areas, low crime areas like ourselves in Gloucestershire, don't have enough money to cover the extra area of our larger spaces. Um, we don't have all the money for pay rises. Police have annual pay rises, and all of those are not covered. And this coming financial year, there's a big spike in our pay of about 14%. We haven't had money for capital projects, so buildings, IT, and cars. For the last 4 years, police inflation is about 5% rather than the national inflation of 2%. So for all of those reasons, almost every single force across the country is really struggling to balance the budget. And that's despite a mass of efficiencies and different ways of doing things. So it really is quite difficult. And we're going through a consultation at the moment on redundancies. That's pretty much inevitable, sadly. But we're trying to minimize the impact because obviously it's a big impact on individuals in the workforce. And we want to minimize the operational impact of any cuts in staff so that we can keep people safe. So it's quite difficult.
Well, surely, when times are tough, crime goes up. There's more burglaries. There's more muggings. There's more car thefts. Crime goes up. So we need more police officers, not less, and more backroom staff.
Yeah, we do, and the government's got a good initiative for an extra 13,000 police for neighbourhood police duties. And in this latest grant allocation, there was 200 million given to the 43 forces, which for us is a million and a half because we're quite a small force. And that will be a really nice enhancement to our neighbourhood police so that we can defend people from the sort of community crimes you talk about, shoplifting, house burglaries, car crime, drug dealing. Those are the sort of crimes that people talk to me about that they want to see tackled.
And it must be very difficult as well to make sure people must say to you, "Oh, we want to see more bobbies on the beat," but it's a very thin line, isn't it?
Yeah, they do. It's interesting that everyone says they want to see more visible police officers on the beat. And I think whenever we manage to do it, it improves trust and confidence. But if you look at the nature of crime today, a good chunk of it's fraud, it's internet, it's behind closed doors. Domestic abuse, for instance. I know it's Valentine's Day, but domestic abuse is about 20% of our county crimes. And most of that takes place behind doors, and people don't talk about it enough, really. And we need to tackle misogyny and stop domestic abuse.
I mean, do you have systems in place, Amanda? Don't you have something in McDonald's if there's a sort of certain word that people could say to members of staff?
We don't have that in all our restaurants, but I was just thinking in Stroud they had a good initiative, and we did it was where they wear orange, or where we got the staff to wear an orange t-shirt, and we had an orange balloon arch, and it was about domestic abuse victims, and basically had someone in Australia McDonald's there as a representative to let people know about that it goes on, and just it's okay not to be okay, and that kind of just raised awareness, as you're saying, Chris, as well. Just getting that word out there that people don't talk about it, but that's important, and I think it's something. It's again we do. A lot of pubs have that, I think, as well, but we don't have that so much in our restaurants. It's got to be a bit more careful, but we are very big on putting up posters. It has a central place to get information out to people. We do that quite as we did when we had the Stroud Business Breakfast meeting. Yeah, it's really important.
Okay, thanks ever so much. Thanks ever so much for that, Chris. We are going to get together very shortly for Punchline Talks Politics, where we can talk about police chief and other more sort of bigger issues things as well. So we'll just come back to that. That's all right. So thanks for agreeing to that. Kevin, let's bring you back in, please. I'd like to talk to you about Berkeley and Albury. I'm going to bring up a map here because I know we're on the same page here. So just bear with me. Can you see a map now, guys? Everybody?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. Right. Okay. So this, if I zoom out, so Gloucester is over here. Albury's down there. There's the sharpness, and as I zoom in down here, there's Berkeley, and even there we go. So can you just explain, please, Kevin, about Berkeley and what's happening with these nuclear sites, what they're talking about, very briefly?
Yeah, very briefly. The background of Berkeley is in the 1960s. Berkeley was the laboratories, or part of it was a laboratory that helped create the commercial nuclear powers for the country, and was one of the first in the world. So that's the licensed site with the two round buildings there, as you see. But just to the south of that, where it says Bloodhound Education Centre, that's where Chris's education centre is. But that is a delicensed site, and we bought that site in about 2014. We've recently sold it, but we bought it in 2014, and we started to develop a science and technology park there, including there's like a hockey stick building just to the north, Mark, and that's the University Technical College, specialising in engineering and digital. Just below that, in the square building, is the college's low carbon training centre. So we've got a presence on the site, but the college was reclassified, and all colleges have now gone into the public sector. So we can't borrow anymore to develop the site. And so the decision was made to sell it. At the same time, just to the south, Albury was being mooted as being a potential site for small modular reactors. And so it's quite a easy marriage that if SMRs were to be put onto Albury, then a business park with large energy users such as AI data centers, agri-tech businesses, vertical farms, that sort of thing. If they were close to SMRs, they could take some of that power and effectively underwrite the costs of that development. And so we're just waiting for the announcement for a technology provider to be selected, or there'll be two actually. And we believe that Albury will be the site of the first SMRs in the UK, between 4 and 6 of them. That means that each SMR is probably worth about £2 billion. So all the guests today are having various issues. This would employ more people. It would bring more money into the local area. It would regenerate, I think, the Severn Edge. So the area from Berkeley right down to Bristol, the Severn Edge area. There's so much going on, but we've got to start looking at the supply chain. And the supply chain in this instance is the bolts and the machinery to put the SMR together, but also the talent. And we've got we reckon between 5,000 and 7,500 people that will be needed just to build these things. Gloucestershire is at work. There's 82% of Gloucestershire is already working. Our unemployment rate is 2.7% as we speak. So there's not a lot of people waiting for this type of development. And so the solution that I'm pushing forward is we have to increase the size of the supply chain. You know, SGS College, absolutely in the middle of this, right beside both these sites, currently trains 40 bricklayers at each site. 40. People think that we've got hundreds, we haven't got 40. Every extra group of 20 will require £1 million worth of space to for them to train in, because you can't build a wall, then take the wall down for somebody else to build a wall on that space. It's space hungry. So we've got to find a way in which the colleges start working together between the 4 colleges, Gloucester, ourselves, City of Bristol and Western. There's £200 million worth of funding. We've got nearly 10,000 apprentices. We can do this, but we also need the support from government on the capital. So what I'm calling for is for Gloucestershire. Now, I've got to say, Gloucestershire County Council and the local authorities around have been fantastic on this. They understand the challenge and the opportunities, but the challenge comes first. And we've got to get this supply chain up and running. So the hope is that we'll cluster together, create a task force. That task force will look at the investment coming and making sure most of the money is spent in Gloucestershire. Most of the new jobs are in Gloucestershire.
I mean, the big thing for me, I mean, we're running out of time. We haven't got time for this, and you and I are going to have a big chat about it, is that if we develop this technology, we'll be able to sell it all over the world, and we'll be the market leaders. That is the truth of the matter, isn't it, really? It'd be absolutely fantastic for the county. It will create thousands of jobs, thousands of pounds, millions of pounds. And I think just people need to wake up. This is on our doorstep. This is bigger than the Golden Valley. This is a huge opportunity for the county. Thanks ever so much for that, explaining that, Kevin. It's very interesting, and wish you all the very best for that as well. And retirement, although I don't think you'll be really retired. Again, we're running out of time, but we want to do on the show. We're coming to the end of it, so we've got to do the pick of the punchlines very, very quickly. I'm going to start with you, Chris. What have you picked out from this week's punchline, please?
Your latest story on Isle Court in Cheltenham and busing people during the Cheltenham Festival, that should be a big improvement and help the congestion within the town at that big festival in March.
Okay, great stuff. Sarah?
Council budget and the expenditure on Greyfriars is absolutely essential. We've got to start filling these rundown parts of the city in. We need an historic city which is walkable, good for well-being, it's good for business, and it's good for the climate.
That's good and safe. Can I say, Amanda, what have you picked out for punchline, please?
I just picked up your reporting on the fact that the Hotel Inigo, they've got a manager, so they're about to open, and I think that's good news for King Square. Talking about hopefully people are going to be using that to come to Gloucestershire and not just use it as a one-stop shop, actually stay over and reinvest in the city. And that tied in, I thought, well, with the Jazz Festival, that's another festival, another racing festival coming up, and just thought really how lucky we are to have all these things on our doorstep, and how crazy it is that in a city like Gloucester, that it's taken this long to get a hotel up and running. So I think that'll be a really, there needs that punctuation point to get that in there. So I thought that was good news.
Yeah, and a really upmarket hotel as well. Watch this space. We'll be following that very, very, very closely, as you can imagine. Kevin, what have you picked out for us, please?
Just bookend things. National Apprenticeship Week, 10,000 more apprentices, government slashing red tape. Got to be good for employers. It's too complicated. If these things are going to be as good as we know they are, then employers have got to be listened to. They are being, and 10,000 more apprentices got to be good for everybody.
Okay, thank you ever so much. Actually, that's all we've got time. I'd just like to thank my fantastic panel. Thank you guys for today. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and my wonderful sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. But we'll be back again next week. But in between that, remember, it's all in the punchline. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.